All right, everybody ready?
Ready?
Everybody ready? Yes. We start a new series today. 3-week series begins today. So you're in on the ground floor. You haven't missed anything.
Yay.
Today, part 1. Let's see what it is. How to age. Like you have a choice, right? Actually, you do. You're going to get older, hopefully. But you can change the way you handle it, the way you deal with it. And that's what we want to talk about today on how to age. Next week, we'll be talking about how to die. Nobody ever tells you that. But there's some good information I want to share with you next week on how to die. You don't have to start working on it yet. Please don't. But it's a good thing to know. Today, how to age. I don't know about you, but sometimes I found this cartoon and sometimes I really identify with what this cartoon has to say. It says, this is how it looks, but this is how it feels. I feel sometimes like there's still a little kid inside me saying, when do I get to be grown up? When do I get all this wisdom I'm supposed to have? When does everything change? When do I suddenly know everything? Okay, I do know everything, but no, not everything. Do you feel like that? I hope you still feel like there's a little child inside there somewhere, maybe pulling the strings. Sometimes we have to put up a front and act like adults. Age is something that kind of sneaks up on us. And it's not a subject that we can say, okay, we're going to do an intensive Bible study on what the Bible has to say about aging, because there's not a whole lot in the Bible about aging, because it wasn't really an issue 2,000 years ago. If you made it to 65 in the time of Jesus, you were old. I mean, ancient old. They could not have conceived of how long people can live now with the advances in medical science and sanitation and all the changes we've made since then. But that means we have much longer lives. We have to figure out how to deal with them now. There are a few verses in the Bible that you can look at that have a few things to say. There's one in Proverbs that says, gray hair is a glorious crown. It is found in the way of righteousness. So some of us have glorious crowns. Some of us, our crowns have some gaps. Some of us, our crowns are rusted away. Yeah, some of us are lying about what color our crown is. But when you find a gray hair, just remember it is a glorious crown. It's not the end of the world. Or you can look over in the New Testament in the book of Titus. You can find these verses. It says, older men are to be self-controlled, worthy of respect, sensible, and sound in faith, love, and endurance. In the same way, older women are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers, not addicted to much wine. They are to teach what is good so that they may encourage the young women to love their husbands and children, to be sensible, pure, good homemakers, and submissive to their husbands, so that God's message will not be slandered. Now, you see why we're not going to do a Bible study on that today. But there is some good information in those verses, though, to say that we need to be sensible, we need to be sound in our faith, we need to have self-control, we need to love people, we need to be in it for the long run, not just for a short-term thing. And it's good to be reverent in behavior, to not slander people, not talk bad about people, to not drink too much. Okay? That's all good advice. But that's really about all the Bible has to say about aging. There's a couple of verses that say we should respect our elders, but what about when you are the elder? What are you supposed to do? Well, if the Bible doesn't address it, Where do you look for it? Well, there's lots of places to look, and there's prophets everywhere. You can find prophets even in the most unlikely places like Turkey, Texas. Turkey, Texas. Anybody know who's from Turkey, Texas? Turkey, Texas is the home of the great, great Bob Wills. Bob Wills is one of my favorite people. He wrote this great song many years ago, and it has a great point of view. If you've never heard it, you're in for a treat. Take it away, Bob.
Don't be ashamed of your age. Don't let the years get you down. That old game you knew, they still think of you as a rounder in your old hometown. Don't mind the gray in your hair. Just think of all the fun you've had putting it there. And now that old book of time, you've never skipped a page, so don't be ashamed of your age, brother. Don't be ashamed of your age. Look out there, Johnny, let's get Listen, Mr. Smith, Mr. Brown. Don't let your age get you down. Life ain't begun until you're 40-some. That's when you really start to go to town. Don't wish that you were a lad. Why, boy, you're gonna smoke out and they've never had. And listen, you graduated from that old sucker stage, so don't be ashamed of your age, brother. Don't be ashamed of your age.
Yeah. Now, what a great sentiment. Don't be ashamed of your age. We live in a time and a culture that says, oh, age is something to be scared of. Age is something to fight against. Don't grow old. Well, I'm all for not growing old, but I am also for acting your age, for being your age, for owning up to your age, for not trying to lie about your age. And there's a lot to this song. Don't be ashamed of your age. You've earned those gray hairs. Every one of those is a battle won. Every day you live is a check mark in the ledger that says, I made it one more day. What's going to be next? So thank you, Bob. St. Bob Wills. What a character. Whoever did what Bob Wills did, those noises he makes, it's just insane. And I can't find anybody that ever did that before him. So that just all came out of him. That was just joy of music that came out of him. Well, how do we age? Is there any good thing about it? Yeah, there are. There are some actually good things about getting older. And I want to look at some of those right now using some of the letters in the word age. One of the good things that happens with age is that we can acquire awareness. We understand better what's going on. We understand better who we are and what's going on around us. We understand a little bit better how the world works. It's mystifying when we're young people because it's hard to think of big issues like that. But after you lived a few decades, you start to get a grip on how things work and how things function, and you're not as bothered by it anymore. Another thing we grow in is is in our appreciation, especially of the small things. Now, you've got stuff in your house that you use every day, and you probably don't ever stop to think about it, you know. Like when I was 20, I would have never gone to buy Q-tips. I love Q-tips now. To the extent that if I'm traveling somewhere and I don't have the Q-tips in my baggage, I go, oh my gosh, I don't have any Q-tips. I just have gotten used to it. I feel, well, I use them like it specifically says on the package not to use them. But when you're a certain age, you find pleasure in the smallest of things. You know, my dad carried a little pocket knife his whole life. He was never without it. It was something he relied on. It was a simple thing, but he used it constantly, and it brought him pleasure. We appreciate even the small things that we have. Here's one good thing about growing old you may not have known or thought about. According to science, your allergies lessen as you get older. And if you've never had allergies before, you're probably not going to get them now, because they usually strike younger people. And if you do have allergies, they tend to slack off as you mature. We also, another good thing about getting older is we grow in our assertiveness. People who have been meek and mild their whole life, sometimes in their latter years, they develop the ability to stand up and say, no, hold on just a second. You're not going to take advantage of me like that. They're able to talk back to the car repairman and the plumber and people like that. But the opposite is also true. People who have been very insistent on their own way their whole life, they have the opposite effect as they mature. They mellow out. They don't get quite as upset about things anymore. Isn't it neat how whichever way you are, it starts to balance out when you get older. We become more the person we're supposed to be without the rough edges on us. When we grow older, we also grow in acceptance, especially acceptance of who we are, of our limitations. One of the best lessons you ever learn in life, and I hope you have learned this, some of you may not have yet, one of the best lessons you can ever learn in life is that you can say no to things. That you don't have to do everything you're asked to do. That there are some things you're not great at doing. You may like to think so, and you may think people will think less of you if you don't volunteer for everything they ask you to do. But boy, there's a lot of freedom and a lot of peace of mind when you get to the point where you can say, you know, I'm not the right person for that. No thanks. Wow, that's a great thing to learn. To know what you can do, and just as importantly, what you can't do. If you go through your life thinking, I can do everything, you're in for a rude awakening someday. So it's good to learn that. We learn acceptance of who we are. Well, that's just the first letter in the word age. We also have some G qualities that we acquire as we age. One is gratitude. We're more thankful for things the older we get. You know, 30-something years ago, 31, 32 years ago, I was a youth director at a big church in San Antonio. I had a big old church bus and a gymnasium and a big youth program and everything. So I was the youth director, and I'd been for several months. And then one day the pastor said, we need somebody to drive the church bus to Houston, to the Astrodome for the evangelism conference to hear Billy Graham. Our senior adult group wants to go. Okay, I was in my mid-20s. I was about 26 years old. He said, our senior adult group wants to go. I can't find anybody else to drive the bus. Will you drive the bus? So I said, well, okay. So I drove the bus. Now, I'd been driving teenagers around in that church bus for months. What a difference. What a difference. When I got to our destination, every person that got off the bus said, thank you, Mike. Teenagers never said that to me before. They bought my lunch. They said, do you need anything? Do you need to take a break? Are you okay? Can I bring you something to drink while I'm driving the bus? I thought, something happens between teenagers and senior adults. And it does. We become more grateful. and more able to express that gratitude to people who have been nice to us. We also increase in our generosity. Several years ago, I saw the statistics, and I can't quote them to you exactly, but you'd be amazed to know what percentage of this church's budget comes from your age group and how it compares to people in younger age groups. Our age group is what keeps this church alive by a long majority, big majority. Why is that? Well, hopefully we've gotten a little bit of wisdom about how to handle our money. We're not always quite right on the edge, and so therefore we can manage it better. We have a little leeway with what we can do with our money, and some of us kindly and charitably decide to give it to our church or to our favorite charity or our nonprofit organization. Baby boomers, our age group, are the best donors in the world, in the United States, for all charitable causes like that. We become more generous. Also, as we age, we gain perspective. This is a great, great thing to have. You know, when you're 19, you look forward, and all you see is a horizon out there. You don't know how you're going to get there. You don't know what's over the horizon. You're just hoping there's something good out there. And by George, you're going to go as fast as you can go. And so you put your foot down on the accelerator and say, I'm heading that way. But 40 years later, you can look back and see the route. You can look back and map your journey just like you can map out how the children of Israel got from Egypt to the Promised Land. You know how they did it? They went like this. To get from here to here. They could have gone like that, but no, they went crazy. That's the way my life is too. Maybe that's the way your life is too. When you look back at it, you go, why did I take that turn there? Well, maybe because it helped me learn how to do this, or it brought me in contact with this person, or I picked up this skill, or I learned this, or I had this important life lesson at that point. It's great to be able to look back and say, there's my journey right there. Hindsight, that's why hindsight is so good. We can actually see where the path is. When you're 19 or 20, you don't know where the path is. So it's great to have some perspective on how you got to this point. And you can also assess how much you have grown since you were 19 or 20. Would you like to have the decision-making capabilities you had when you were 19 right now? Would you like to make as good a decisions as you made then? Oh, man. Oi. We do grow. We learn things. We become more intuitive. We're able to separate things according to what's going to be good and what's going to be bad. At least most of the time we are. Well, with the letter E, we learn some big words. We acquire equanimity. You know what equanimity is? Equanimity means you don't get flustered when little things go wrong. You try to maintain an even keel. Now, it may be true that at our age now, we don't get those incredible highs where we go running down the streets of town screaming, going, yeah, woohoo, lifting up our shirts. We may not do that. But on the other hand, when we get our feelings hurt, we don't run into our room and slam the door and stay in there for 3 days eating chocolate. At least I hope we don't do that anymore. We acquire some equanimity where we know, oh, this is a bump in the road. I've had these before. I know it's going to be over soon. I can look just beyond it and know that everything is going to be all right. Equanimity is a great gift, and you know what? Young people don't have it. They don't have enough experience to have it yet. Another thing we acquire as we age, we enjoy our lives better. There's been a ton of research done in recent years of surveys done on younger people and older people, and much to the surprise of the surveyors, they have found that people in their 60s and 70s, by a big majority, say, the last 5 years have been the best years of my life. And that just blows the mind of young people. They say, how can that be the best years of your life? You're old. And we say, but we know how to live. We know how to live without getting stupid, without being crazy. We enjoy our lives. Also, as we age, we become more empathetic. You communicate better with other people. You understand other people better. If somebody comes to you and says, I'm having this problem, it's this, and it's something you went through 10 years ago, you can say, oh man, I know exactly what you're going through. Here, let me tell you what I did. And you put your arm around them, and they put their trust in you. You can help that person because you have been there. You can empathize. Young people can sympathize sometimes, but they don't have the empathy that comes with age and experience. And then finally, one of the benefits of aging is that experience I just mentioned, because experience is what brings us wisdom. Experience plus time equals wisdom. If you're 19 and you have a dramatic episode in your life, you may learn something from it, or you may not. I've seen a lot of kids that make the same mistake over and over again. I've known teenagers who have wrecked 3 or 4 cars the first year they had a license, because they're not learning from their mistakes. But with experience comes wisdom. You can have knowledge when you're young, but wisdom, I think, requires some seasoning. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Do you know who this is?
Yeah, Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell. This is Joni Mitchell, a great, great songwriter and singer, starting in the late 60s onward. Wrote some amazing songs. Beautiful voice, really unique style of playing the guitar, incredible songwriter. Joni Mitchell, in this picture, is in her early 20s. Everybody loved Joni Mitchell. The first time most people heard of her was a song that she wrote called Both Sides Now. Now, that song became a hit for Judy Collins. Judy Collins recorded a version of it and had a hit. But as a result of that, Joni Mitchell got her own recording contract, and she recorded it on her first album. And I remember hearing it when it came out and thinking, yeah, okay. Here's this girl who knows everything. She's got it all figured out. She's 22 years old, yeah, got all the answers. Here's part of how Joni sings that song, or sang that song.
And ice cream castles in the air, and favorite canyons everywhere. I looked at clouds that breathe, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone, so many things I've done. Clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know that.
So when I heard that song back then, I didn't like it. I thought it was too sing-songy, too know-it-all, too, oh, look, I'm a sensitive singer-songwriter. And I didn't care for it. Well, that's been a long time ago. That's been a while. And Joni doesn't look like that anymore. Nowadays, Joni looks like this. Joni's had a fascinating life. She's from Canada. As a child, she had polio back in the 50s when it was an epidemic. And it left some lasting effects on her. Joni Mitchell is known for, she plays the guitar, but she tunes her guitar in weird ways. She doesn't tune it to the same notes every guitarist does. She tunes it to different tunings for every song. And the reason is because her left hand was permanently weakened from polio. And she can't play all those intricate chords that are required by a guitarist. So she made it so she could play the chords easier, and she invented all these different tunings for her guitar. Polio was a major component of her life. There was another one, before anybody knew who she was, before her last name was even Mitchell, because that was her first marriage, before her name was even Joni Mitchell, she got pregnant at 20 years of age, unmarried, didn't know what to do, went away from home and had a daughter and gave her up for adoption and never saw her again. Nobody knew this for decades. She went back, she began playing music, she got involved in the folk music boom of the mid-60s. People began to hear her songs and say, wow, she's incredibly talented. She became close with every great singer-songwriter of the 70s pretty much. She had relationships with James Taylor and Jackson Browne and Stephen Stills and Graham Nash and David Crosby and you name it. And every one of those guys came away saying, she's the most amazing musician I've ever known. Well, she began to make records. She had a lot of hits on her own, and everybody loved her. She's never sold out. You never hear a Joni Mitchell song in a commercial. She won't let it happen. She's maintained her artistic integrity. And speaking of artistic, she's a painter. She paints amazing things. In fact, she's done a lot of her own album covers. She says, I'm an artist who got distracted by the music business. But she still paints. She won't even sell her paintings. She just paints them and she keeps them. Decades go by. Joni Mitchell has sold millions and millions of records. 32 years later, she and her daughter find each other, thanks to the internet. And they meet up, and Joni, for the first time, sees the daughter she abandoned 32 years before. What do you think that was like? Not only did she gain a daughter, she gained a granddaughter, too. Now, that was an incredibly moving experience for her. She's had 2 unsuccessful marriages during that time. She hasn't been married for the last almost 20 years. She smoked her whole life since she was a teenager. She says she's the last of the great smokers. She's not going to give it up. She doesn't think it has any effect on her. It has had an effect on her. When she sings her old songs now, they have to lower the key because she can't reach all those beautiful crystal high notes anymore. But a few years ago, they were going to put out another greatest hits compilation of hers. And I don't know who had the bright idea, but somebody suggested her re-record Both Sides Now. A new arrangement of this first song that hit for her. It's actually in the soundtrack to a great movie called Love Actually. That's the first time I heard it, and I heard it in this movie, and I thought, oh my gosh, I got to hear that again. And I went and found the song, and it just gave me chills. I listened to the song, and I just got choked up listening to it, because something has changed in the almost 40 years between the first recording of that song and the second recording of that song. And so this woman, not that chirpy little hippie girl anymore, but listen to her and what she has learned.
Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way. Oh, but now, old friends, they're acting strange. And they shake their heads and they tell me that I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's really don't know life at all.
Now, I don't know if that does anything for you or not. That just kills me. Because you know what? She knows life now. That song is exactly the same song that she sang 40 years before, but now she knows what it means. She had the knowledge to write a good song in the 60s, but now she has the wisdom to know what that song means. You can hear the years in her voice. You can hear the cigarettes in her voice. You can hear the heartbreak, the joys, and the sorrow in her voice. Some lines in that last part that I just love. She says, tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Don't you think when she recorded that, it had to be in her mind that she found the daughter she had given up all those years before? And now she could say, I love you. You are mine. I can tell everybody now. Or then there's a line that says, my friends say I'm acting strange. They shake their heads, say I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something is gained in living every day. We lose something every day. We lose a day. We lose time. Oh no, I'm running out of time. But you know what? You gain something every day too. And when you start to think about your life that way, I'm gaining something today I've never had before. When you start thinking of your life that way, your life is going to be better. And you're not going to mind a wrinkle or a gray hair because you're going to realize, I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still becoming who I am supposed to be. That last chorus, she says, I've looked at life from both sides now. Yes, finally, she has. See, when you're 22, you haven't seen both sides. You've seen one side. You can speculate what the other side is about, but now Joni Mitchell has seen both sides. She says, from win and lose, and still somehow I feel like I really don't know life at all. Oh, you do. You do. You learn by doing life. It's a great song. If you're going to download that song, make sure you get the right version. Make sure you get the re-recording and not the original, unless you like the original too. But, well, if we have no choice, if we're going to age, and we are, sorry to tell you, you're all older than you were when you came in here this morning. Wow, that's a sobering thought. If we're all going to age, there are some things that we can do, though, to make it a better experience. And I could probably name a million of them, but I'm just going to give you a couple today that I really believe will help our experience. The first one is this, and it's a simple sounding thing. Avoid the stuff that's bad. Now that sounds very simplistic, but a lot of us tend to go back to the same bad stuff over and over again. How big a warning do we need to know that smoking is bad for us? How big a warning do we need to know that if you eat the quadruple bacon cheeseburger every day, it's going to catch up with you sooner or later? By the way, 2 weeks ago, I told you I was starting a diet the next day. And I said I was telling you so I'd be accountable to you. I said, you have my permission to ask me, how much have you lost? Nobody has asked me how much I lost.
You want to tell us?
No, it's none of your business. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks. As of this morning, I've lost 11.4 pounds. Now, let me tell you what's different about this, because I've been on lots of diets. Let me tell you what's different. One, I told you about it to start with. I told you I had read a column by Donald Miller, great writer, Donald Miller, and he said resolutions are easily broken because they're so nebulous, they're so nonspecific. You set a goal like, I want to lose weight this year. You're not going to do it. But if you set a goal like, in September, I want to climb to the top of Mount Hood, well, you're going to have to get in shape to do that. So he said, make your goals specific and then realize it's part of the story you're writing. Well, that appeals to me like crazy. I always want to remember that I'm writing a story. And so as I shared with you two weeks ago, what a great story if at 59 years of age, I get in the best shape I've been in since high school. Wouldn't that be a good story? Okay, there's chapter 1, 11.4 pounds. That's chapter 1. We're going to write that story this year. And I want you to keep me honest. I want you to keep me accountable to you, all right? Now, something else that's different, and it has to do with, I can't believe when God does this. I just hate it when I pray for something and He gives it to me. And it's happened a couple of times, and it's very inconvenient. The first time was a few years ago when I suddenly realized I really didn't care too much about anybody else but me. And I began to pray in my sort of half-hearted prayer life, God, please help me learn to love people. And He did it. Oh my gosh. I was really satisfied just looking after me, God. But He changed my heart. And I began to care about other people. Well, I've always thought, you know, I could diet, I could lose weight easily if I could ever just learn to enjoy feeling hungry. No, you're all saying it's not possible. Let me tell you, it's happened. Because the way I think about it has changed. You know, if you're writing a story, if you're writing a screenplay, a movie, you want the hero to achieve this great goal, right? Well, he's got to go through adversity. There's got to be people trying to kill him. He's got to be falling off a cliff. The car has to explode at the wrong time. There's got to be adversity. And then he gets to the goal at the end and we go, yay! And I realized those hunger pangs are just a step along the way. That's part of the drama that has to ensue so I can get to the goal part. And for the last 2 weeks, I have experienced that feeling, and I thought, okay, I'm feeling a little bit hungry. And where normally I would say, it's time to go eat as much as I can possibly put in my face. Now it's, how little do I have to eat to make that feeling go away? Turns out I really don't have to eat very much to make it go away. Just a little bit. And the result is I've lost 11 pounds in 2 weeks. And I'm loving it. And there's one more component that you may be able to work in your life too. If something in your life is not going the way you want it to, try channeling that into something positive. For instance, I've been trying to get my public speaking career off the ground for over a year now. And it's going lousy. You know, I come here on Sunday morning and people say, wow, that was great. You should be speaking for a living. I'm like, I'm trying. But I can't get arrested out in the speaking world. And so I go through stages where I think, this is ridiculous. Why am I even doing this? And so over the past few weeks, as a year has gone by and there has not been any real notable success in that, it suddenly entered my mind, well, what can I succeed at? If I can't succeed in that right now, what is something I do have control over? And one thing I do have control over is what I put in my mouth. And so it is the perfect time to change something in your life when something else is going badly in your life. Because it feels like you're fighting back against adversity. It feels almost like penance, sort of, okay, things are going bad, so I'm going to make this change. But it's working for me. And so I recommend it. Avoid the stuff that is bad. We know so many things that are bad. I found this picture months ago, and I've been holding it ever since. I want to show it to you. This is a guy, a 69-year-old man, who drove a delivery truck for 30-something years. Now this is the right side of his face. This is the side that faces the inside of the truck. This is the side that faces the window where the sun is. You want testimony of what the sun can do to you? What, that beautiful sun that makes the flowers grow? Yep. That sun will make you old before your time if you don't take precautions. Avoid the things that are going to hurt you. Stay out of the sun unless you've got a good sunblock on. Stay away from food and drink that's going to hurt you. And you know what? Stay away from toxic people, because there are some. There are people that you're not ever going to fix, you're not ever going to change, and every time you're around them, they make you feel terrible. So stop being around them. Avoid the things that are bad for you. Here's the catch-22 in this whole story. Did you know that stressing out over getting older will make you older? If you get all panicky when you find another gray hair or a missing hair or another wrinkle or a new creak in your joints, if that gets you all upset, it's going to make them come quicker if you stress about them. So what do? You don't worry about them. You're awake, you're alive, you're cognizant, you're breathing, your brain is still working. You have another day of life. Don't let a little twinge interfere with your day and your life and the story that you are writing. Avoid the stuff that is bad. The G in age, I decided to make it stand for this. Gather. You need to be gathering right now. Not stuff, not possessions. You need to be gathering people. Research in UCLA Medical over the past few years has shown that people live longer when they have good social networks in place. And they couldn't figure this out at first because it didn't make sense. They thought people's longevity would be tied to things like how long your parents lived, how much stress you had in your life, what kind of home you grew up in. No. One of the most important factors is how many people you are close to and interacting with. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing that God has designed us so that we benefit from being around each other? Yeah, we may annoy each other sometimes, but we still benefit from being around each other. So what we should be doing at this stage in our life is looking for every opportunity to make connections. Every kind of group. You know, if there's a group of 2 or 3 of you that get together for lunch one day every week, cherish that. If there's a book club you're a part of, if there's an exercise class you go to, if there is even, a Sunday school class you go to, don't just come to it and sit there. Realize it is a chance for you to make connections with other people. Oh, by the way, I forgot to make an announcement. Next week, we have to move. There's a special event happening in here next Sunday. Speaking of being close to each other, next Sunday we're going to meet right there in the Plaza View room. It supposedly will hold 90 people. We're going to see. So we'll have signs and stuff up next Sunday. But next Sunday we're going to be in there and it will be close communion. We will be rubbing shoulders, literally, with each other. But that's a good thing. We need to make these connections. You don't want to get to the end of your life and say, there's nobody here. Nobody called me. Nobody came to visit me. Nobody sent me a card. That's because you cut off everybody in your life. You can't burn all your bridges and then wonder why nobody comes to your birthday party. They can't get there anymore. Well, a third thing. This may surprise you. E. It's no surprise. You hear this a lot. You got to exercise. Now, I can't preach to you very much about exercising. But I can preach to you about this. Exercising what's between your ears. Because it doesn't matter how good a shape your body is in if your brain has gone to sleep. And a lot of people our age and older are just letting their minds drift away. You got to do something to stay sharp. And you know what? Doing something is not watching 4 hours of television every night. That will turn your brain to mush because it asks nothing of you. It just says, sit there in your recliner and just watch the pretty pictures. We'll tell you who's who. We'll tell you who the bad guy is, who the good guy is. We'll tell you what to go out and buy next time you go to the grocery store. You don't have to think of anything. Oh, don't do that. Or don't do just that. There are so many things you could be doing to keep the biggest muscle in your body alive. Yes?
I read research that says when you're watching television, your brain is less active than when you're sleeping.
Okay, I believe it. He said research shows your brain is less active watching TV than it is when it's asleep. I believe that because my brain is pretty active when I'm asleep. Let me tell you some things to do, though, to exercise what's between your ears. One is you need to do puzzles. You need to keep your brain figuring things out. Now, a lot of people said, I got out of school, I don't ever want to have to solve another problem. Well, you need to. Otherwise, you lose those cognitive abilities. Now, my mother, when she was in her last years, she did the simplest puzzles I can imagine. She did word search puzzles. These are not very challenging. I mean, these don't require you to think very much. They don't require you to make many mental leaps. So, if that's what you're doing, step it up a little. Try doing something where you actually have to figure something out. For instance, how many of you do Sudoku? Sudoku is a great mental exercise. And the great thing it is, you can start at any level. It's easy to learn the rules. It doesn't require math. It's not addition of numbers or anything. It's just making judgments. And the cool thing is, Sudoku puzzles come in all different levels. This one is marked easy. So you can do this one in just a few minutes because it's an easy one. But they come in all levels: easy, medium, hard, daring, challenging, insane. I work at least 2 insane Sudokus every day because it keeps me thinking and making connections.
There's a website that's called Lumosity, and it's very challenging in a lot of different memory and logic.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, you don't have to go out and even buy a Sudoku book. Just Google Sudoku online, and you'll find places where you can solve puzzles right there on your computer and not even have to buy the book. And you can start easy and say, okay, I did that one in 5.5 minutes. I'm going to try the next level up. And it may take you a little longer. And pretty soon, you finish it and you think, I'm smarter than I thought I was. And you keep moving up the ladder, and it forces your brain to wake up. And that's a good thing for your brain to wake up. I do these other puzzles that are called nonograms, or they go by lots of names. It's a blank grid with numbers on the side, and the numbers tell you how many squares should be colored in. Like in this top row, there should be a group of 5, and then 1, and then 1. And by comparing and contrasting, you can figure out where they go until you fill them all in. Now, these start on a 5 by 5 grid. They're very simple to do. This is a 10 by 10 grid. I do a 25 by 25 grid at least twice a day because it keeps me sharp. And here's the cool thing. I've discovered I can do Sudoku, or I can do these puzzles while the TV is on and not miss a thing. I still know everything that's going on in that show, and yet I am using my brain because you can do more than one thing. These are great for your brain. Do something to stretch your brain. And then my other recommendation for exercising your brain, you may be surprised at. Video games. I like to play video games. I didn't always. I mean, there was a period of many years when I didn't play video games, but now I play them all the time. Not all the time, but I play them regularly. Now, if by video games, the last time you played a video game, if it looked like this, you're a little bit out of date if that's what you think of as a video game now. Video games have come so far since then. Let me ask you this. Wouldn't you like to be the hero in a movie like Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark? Wouldn't you like to be exploring ancient ruins and finding treasures and dodging bad guys and jumping on the top of moving vehicles? And wouldn't it be great to be in a movie like that? You can do that. Let me show you a video game I played recently. Now let me tell you, I play a game like that and my hands are sweaty and my heart is pounding and my brain has got to work out because you control what direction he runs and when he jumps and how far he leaps. And if you miss, you die. But the cool thing about video games is you get another chance at it. You die and then you come right back and get to do it again. So they're awesome. And this game, the environments they created for them now, high definition, 3 dimensions, they're amazing. You get to go through scenery in this game, which is called Uncharted. You get to go through these forests and they're just amazing, even more so when you realize somebody had to program every leaf, every blade of grass, every ray of sunlight. Somebody had to program that. And you come to these cities, you can go in any door, you can climb up the walls, you can leap from building to building, you can jump through the window, you can slide down wires, and you can hide behind things, which is usually good because somebody's out to get you most of the time. But it's great. It's like traveling the world and seeing all these cool places, and you solve puzzles. You follow clues, you read maps, you move these ancient things around and mysterious things start happening. You've got to solve problems. And it works your brain, it works your eye-hand coordination. And it's a lot of fun. Now, if that's too realistic for you, you can be Indiana Jones, the Lego version. There's a whole bunch of Lego games which are real cute and not nearly as suspense-filled. But let me show you a game my wife and I are playing right now. This is us. This is me. This is her. This is a game called Portal. You play robots and each of us has a gun which can shoot a portal in a wall. So if I shoot a yellow portal here and a blue portal here, I can stick my hand into the yellow one and it pops out here. Or if I jump through the yellow one, I land outside the blue one. Now there's no point in putting them right next to each other most of the time. But if you're trying to get through a gigantic building and you got to leap across platforms like this and you got to figure out, well, if I put a portal here and go through it, I can put the other portal over here somewhere and come out there. And so Lisa and I will sit there playing with our controllers in our hands and I'll say, where do we go? I don't know. Do you see anything? We'll look around and finally one of us will say, how about if we do that? Oh yeah, and we got to do this at exactly the right moment. And we have to cooperate sometimes. And then we get through a level and it's like we have just won the Olympics. And it keeps our brains functioning. Well, if you want to age, you can't just sit back and wait for the end to come. I read an article by a woman who is a hospice nurse. Somebody in here works at hospice, Rusty? She said she had spent years working in hospice environments and gotten to know many, many patients very well. Now, hospice means you're at the end. The end is very, very near. And she said she noticed after she'd been there for several years, the same things kept being voiced by people. Over and over, she heard the same regrets of people who were dying. Now, why am I telling you stuff said by people who are dying? Because you still have a chance to change these things. Let me tell you what is the biggest regret of people on their deathbed. She said the one she heard more than anything else was this: I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. If you're still trying to please Mama and Daddy instead of being the person God created you to be, you need to break out of that right now. You still have a chance to be you and find out who that person is. She said this was by far the most common regret that people have at this stage in their life. The second one, she said she especially heard this a lot from men: I wish I didn't work so hard. She said nobody ever gets to their deathbed and says, I wish I hadn't played with my kids so much. I wish I hadn't spent all that time with my family. Nobody ever says that. Instead, she said they say this all the time: I wish I had realized there was more to life than work. I wish I had taken time for the truly important things. The third most common regret is, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. The moment you're about to die is not the time to tell your family you love them, to tell your friends, I love you. You know when that time is? Now, today. Now is the time for you to do that. Don't wait. Tell them today. The fourth most common regret: I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. You know, whether you like Facebook or not, one good thing you can say about it is, I heard from people I went to high school with and I hadn't heard from in 40 years. And that was good. I enjoyed that. Because I have been guilty in my life of burning some bridges behind me. That's high school. What do I need to maintain those relationships for? We need all the relationships we can get. You can't have too many relationships. You can't know too many people. They are all important to you. Maintain them. Keep them up. Don't let them slip away. And finally, she said the fifth regret is, I wish I had let myself be happier. Sometimes people don't realize until they're at death's door that happiness is a choice. It's not something that happens to you based on your circumstances. It's how you decide to wake up in the morning and go through your day. If you wake up tomorrow and you go, oh, it's Monday again, oh my gosh, gotta go to work, gotta sit by old stupid, I gotta go listen to so-and-so tell me what to do. What joy you must have in your life. But you can choose to wake up and say, oh man, it's a whole new week. I wonder what's going to happen this week. I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to meet someone new. I'm going to experience something I've never done before. I'm going to take a road less traveled this week. I'm going to be something more than just a bundle of regrets when I get to the end. You still have time to change all those things into something beautiful. Here's the cold fact. You are going to age. There's only one alternative. You're either going to age or you're going to die. What do you want to do right now? Let's age. So, if you're going to do it then, the question is, how are you going to handle it? How are you going to face it? You can face it with joy, with grace, with excitement, with fervor, with intelligence, with anticipation of what there still is for you to learn and discover and know. That's how I want to age. My body may age, but boy, my mind, there's still the little boy in there saying, oh, that was awesome. And I don't ever want him to leave. Next week, we will move on to part 2 of this story, and we will talk about how to die. I will see you then.